Alexander Volkanovski, having shared the octagon with both Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria, believes that Topuria poses a serious threat to Makhachev's lightweight reign as he moves up to 155. During a virtual appearance on the Ariel Helwani show, Volkanovski warned that if Topuria lands clean, he has the power to knock anyone out, including Makhachev. Meanwhile, Makhachev has also expressed interest in moving up to pursue a second title, and Volkanovski predicts that if Jack Della Maddalena defeats Bilal Muhammad at UFC 315, Islam will make the jump to welterweight. With Topuria uninterested in working his way up the 155-pound rankings, the lightweight division's future remains uncertain until after UFC 315 on May 10th. In other news, UFC referee Jason Herzog admitted to a major mistake during the UFC Seattle main event between Song Yadong and Henry Cejudo. Cejudo suffered a double eye poke, which led to the fight being stopped and going to the judges' scorecards. Days later, Cejudo voiced his frustration in a YouTube video, prompting Herzog to admit that he should have deducted a point from Song, acknowledging his mistake upon review.
But you never warned him, or you never took away a point? You like?
I'll give you my perspectives in the moment, and then just so you hear it. I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong, because I've heard you now, and I completely agree, especially afterwards when he came with his fingers like this. Why didn't you then stop it and take a point immediately? And I think that's a very valid criticism and an adjustment that I probably should have made. Yeah, I think that you're a fair point. And when I watch it again, I'm like, yeah, you should have probably stopped it and taken a point.
Based on the judges' scorecards, if Song Yadong had lost a point in the third round, the fight would have ended as a majority draw. Attorney Eric McCracken believes that while mistakes happen, Jason Herzog's willingness to admit his error is commendable, calling it a 10-10 move. Despite this, Dana White has little interest in a rematch, leaving Henry Cejudo's future uncertain. Meanwhile, Sean Strickland, who may be recovering from a broken nose after his fight with Dricus du Plessis, has already been called out by Robert Whittaker. During an appearance on the Homa Fights on Paper podcast,
I think Strickland makes a good argument to have. I feel like we've both been in that top sort of pond for a while, circling each other. For whatever reason, we haven't been matched up, but we've both been in proximity for a while. Most likely, the fight to make. I'm excited by that fight. Like, I look at his style and I find it curious. Like, I find it exciting to try and work out. He's a tough dude. I want to come back this year in June. It gives me a good amount of time to just continue doing what I'm doing, but also ease into a camp properly and come in, my best self.
Robert Whittaker may be too respectful to admit it, but his recent call-out of Sean Strickland could be a response to Strickland's past comments, where he dismissed Whittaker as a can after his performance against Khamzat Chimaev. Meanwhile, Whittaker has also been called out by Jared Cannonier for a rematch following Cannonier's win over RoboCop at the Apex, making it possible that Whittaker takes another fight before Strickland fully recovers from injury. In UFC updates, the UFC Mexico card in March has seen a late change, with Austin Hubbard stepping in for the injured Elvis Brenner to face Daniel Zellhuber, while Christian Rodriguez will fight Michel Costa, who is riding a 2-fight win streak. The UFC Denver card in May has also been updated, with Junior Tafa facing Tafa Tuivasa and Modestas Bukauskas teasing an upcoming fight announcement after his recent win. Additionally, veteran Brian Boom Boom Kelleher announced his retirement, expressing gratitude for his journey despite missing the chance for a final UFC fight in front of home fans. In grappling news, after Bryce Mitchell withdrew from his Karate Combat grappling match, the promotion booked top 10 middleweights Kyle Balo and Brendan Allen for their upcoming Denver event. Meanwhile, fighter Dennis Buzukja was suspended for 9 months by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for an altercation with a crowd member connected to Team Khabib at UFC 310. However, if Buzukja completes 40 hours of community service with organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters or Special Olympics, his suspension could be reduced to 6 months, though the commission has warned of harsher penalties for future altercations. Lastly, despite Michael Chandler and Dana White showing doubt about Conor McGregor's UFC return, Dustin Poirier believes McGregor could still make a comeback. Speaking on the Auto Pocket with G3 Da podcast, Poirier emphasized that McGregor is a special fighter, and despite concerns over his commitment, a return is still within the realm of possibility.
The cuts, the bumps and bruises, the staph infections, the ringworms, or just the weekly stuff you deal with being in the training camp and being in the gym nonstop. I love to talk trash on Conor, but like if anybody can put it all together and come back, if he can find that passion and that fire and put it together, this guy can. I'm not saying anybody, but this guy can. He's special. Yeah. You know, he has something special, but only he knows, you know, when he looks in the mirror, if he can really do it again.
Yeah.
But if he believes it, I believe he could.
What would you do to get that edge back?
Man, me, I love when the chips are down. I love when I'm the dog, my back's against the wall. I would use that as the motivation, push forward with that. That would be my, like I would anchor to that and harness on that and just every day in the gym, sweating, bleeding, grinding, thinking I'm gonna show everybody who I really am. Coming back from a broken leg, coming back from a few losses, everybody writing me off. That would be my motivation because I love that stuff. I've never lost 2 fights in a row in my career. Every time I lose, this ain't happening.
At one point, Conor McGregor made it clear that he had unfinished business with Dustin Poirier. But with Poirier now working out the details of his retirement fight, it seems like the possibility of a 4th fight between them has faded. Meanwhile, BJ Penn has once again accused Georges St-Pierre of cheating, reviving controversy from their 2009 fight known as Greasegate. At the time, a commission official reported that GSP's cornerman, Phil Nurse, had rubbed Vaseline on his upper, arms, and shoulders, leading to instructions for GSP's team to wipe him down between rounds. Although Dana White acknowledged that GSP himself wasn't intentionally cheating, Penn and his team formally complained. Now Penn has taken things even further, claiming on Instagram that GSP used PEDs and even had someone wear a lifelike mask to take weigh-ins and drug tests for him. He alleged that GSP used steroids, insulin, growth hormone, blood doping, EPO, and other unknown substances, though no evidence supports these claims. How GSP would have managed to pull off such a scheme remains unclear. In other news, Dana White recently took to Instagram to announce new UFC fights, continuing to shape the future of the promotion's stacked upcoming schedule.
The new co-main event for March 8th, UFC 313 here in Las Vegas, is going to be Gaethje versus Fiziev. I don't know how much I got to sell Gaethje to you. 13 performance bonuses in 13 fights. 20 of his 25 wins are by knockout. Fiziev in his last fight was cut short due to an unfortunate knee injury. But prior to that, Fiziev had 6 straight performance bonuses. We fixed it. That's a fun one.
Following the UFC 313 fight announcement, reputable MMA reporter Aaron Bronsteter revealed that due to a last-minute change, the fight will now be a 3-rounder instead of 5, which, while understandable, is disappointing. He noted that Rafael Fiziev is stepping in on extremely short notice against Justin Gaethje, with media day only a week away, and the weight cut being a major factor. Fiziev reacted on social media, writing, "For the fans," while Mateusz Gamrot, who was ready to step in, expressed frustration that Gaethje accepted the fight with Fiziev instead, claiming, "Strikers have always feared wrestlers." Fiziev fired back, stating that Gamrot had turned down their rematch on February 1st. Gaethje later revealed on X that several fighters, including Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, and Renato Moicano, all declined the fight on short notice. Tsarukyan responded, clarifying that he accepted immediately but requested a 160-pound catchweight, which the UFC denied. Poirier also chimed in, saying he was never offered the fight and had actually reached out to the UFC when he saw the news. Gaethje later clarified that he wasn't implying anyone refused to fight him, just recounting the chaotic 48 hours. Interestingly, in an interview with Bloody Elbow, Alex Pereira admitted he was unaware that Dan Hooker had pulled out of the Gaethje fight, as he was too focused on his own training and hadn't checked social media. In other UFC updates, White announced that Bryce Mitchell will fight Joanderson Brito at UFC 314, adding another exciting matchup to the card.
UFC 314, April 12th in Miami, Florida. Silva, who fought last weekend and had an unbelievable performance in Seattle, immediately calls out Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell immediately texts Hunter Campbell and says, I want the fight. So we made it. Silva versus Mitchell. Ask and you shall receive, I guess. That's a fun one. I didn't want anybody to think we're putting a hit out on Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell literally texted immediately after he said it, said he wants to fight, so we're doing it in Miami. So there you have it.
This explains why Bryce Mitchell pulled out of his karate combat fight this week. It all makes sense now. Additionally, while not announced through Dana White's Instagram, it was revealed beforehand that Jamahal Hill will fight Khalil Roundtree in the main event at UFC Kansas City on April 26. With all these exciting fights coming up, let us know which ones you're most excited about in the comments. Meanwhile, the MMA community is not happy with UFC 313 after Dana White revealed Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev as the co-main event. Fans expressed frustration, feeling the rematch wasn't necessary and questioning why Mateusz Gamrot wasn't given the fight instead. Many pointed out that Fiziev is coming off a loss to Gamrot, while Gaethje's decision to take this fight doesn't necessarily benefit his legacy. Others believe the fight is a downgrade for the event, with some saying UFC 313 has now become mid and that fans were hoping for a more exciting matchup. While some still find the fight interesting, others argue it does little to push either fighter's career forward, especially with Fiziev coming off a long layoff and a major knee injury. What are your thoughts on the new UFC 313 co-main event? Let us know